welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so excited to have you joining us again for another fabulous show where we talk to interesting and amazing people, extra special guests, to find out what they have done in their own lives to create a mindset for success. And today is no different. Today we have an extra special guest in Dr. Avnesh Ratnanesan. Hello, Avi.
Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Good, thank you. And it's so fabulous to have you on the show. I was reminiscing earlier today. I think it's been about 10 years that you and I have kind of been floating in and out of each other's radars. So it's really lovely to have you on the show today.
Thanks for the invite, Michelle. One whole decade of friendship, eh? That's a good sign.
And we don't look a day older.
We're still talking to each other. You know, that's a good sign.
That's always a very, very good sign, isn't it? So Dr. Avi, as people fondly call him, has been around in the entrepreneur space for, as I've said, for the 10 years I've known him, but maybe many, many years longer. And as you've heard me call him, he's a doctor. So Dr. Avi has an incredible and interesting and varied background, from medical studies to become a doctor, all the way through now to being the founder and CEO of a data analytics and software company. So I'm really fascinated again how somebody with such a successful mindset can really turn that mindset and make success in anything that they touch. But before we get to that part of the interview, I'd love to hear, Avi, what was the background? How did you kind of come to be a doctor, first of all, and then sort of transition from that to founding a data analytics company?
Michelle, yeah, thank you very much for the invite. And it's an interesting and windy journey, I'll be honest with you. So I grew up in Malaysia and born and bred there, and got a scholarship to study in Singapore, and following that another scholarship to study medicine in the UK. So my background went from, kind of Asia to the Western world, and it was certainly my intention that when I grew up I wanted to be a doctor, and certainly it was something that I did. I practiced in medicine in the UK as I was a doctor for the National Health Service over there, the NHS, and then at that point realized that, you know what, I love helping people, I love doing this kind of work, but I'm not sure if this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. And that was something I started to question early on. And so I said, I want to practice medicine in a different health system in order to really feel how this works for me. And so I then came to Australia, started working in public and private hospitals, which was a different medical system. I loved helping patients. I loved working with other people. But again, as I was working through it, I also questioned, is this the ultimate thing for me in terms of clinical medicine? So the parts of it that I really enjoyed were parts that I wasn't sure about. At the time, then I realized that, when I was in school and university, I liked doing math, and I liked reading. I seemed to be reading, whenever I read the newspapers, it was always about business. And I was like, how come I like this business stuff, although not knowing anything about it? And I'm knowing that there's things I like about medicine, but is there something else that I could be doing here? So I decided to go back to school and go back and do another degree, which was a master's in business administration. I did that in the University of Queensland in Australia, and then developed the dual qualification, right? So now I've got my medical degree, I've got my business skills, and I said, okay, well, coming out of this, and I got an honors in that, and some of the lecturers were saying to me, Avi, one day you're going to be a captain of industry. I think that's something to tell everyone on the MBA, right? You're all going to be captains of industry one day. And so I felt that what I still wanted to do was improve human health and well-being. And so I ended up having a career, firstly at a biotech company, and then got headhunted for a major company, which was Pfizer, which is a big pharmaceutical company, and it was the largest one. And I got a job in a medical director role in the company, and then worked my way up to chief of staff and in charge of strategy and innovation. And that was a company that was turning over about $1 billion a year. So it was really a fantastic role for me in the ability to suddenly be able to look at what impacts health on a macro level right? And a whole population level. And what are the things that we can do to innovate in that space? But obviously, the focus at Pfizer was specifically drugs and medication. But after my time at Pfizer, I started developing a lot of business plans in my head. And I think by the time I left, I already had 15 different business ideas and plans that I'd worked through. And so there was this entrepreneurial spark, and an opportunity came about to take a voluntary redundancy from Pfizer through a restructure. And I'd called a couple of people in that I confided in. In every single conversation I had on that drive to work that day, that I was told that, there is a voluntary redundancy opportunity for you as a result of this restructure. I was talking to these three friends, and all of them said to me, Avi, for as long as we've known you, you've always had these business ideas, and why don't you just take this as an opportunity to try one of those ideas? And so that redundancy gave me the initial startup capital to go out and start my first business. So cut a long story short, I had a couple of businesses in the tech space, which are initially in the film and video technology space, because I had an interest in filmmaking at the time. I'd won an award at an international film festival. And so I actually went to create tech startups in that space for about 3 years. So I left healthcare altogether. What I realized from that journey, Michele, was that whilst I love technology and disruption and creating new innovative things, if they weren't healing people, if they weren't helping ease the suffering of others, then my heart wasn't really in it, and it didn't really fulfill my purpose. And that was something I cottoned on to when I founded NHS in 2012. So I sort of sold my shares within the tech startup, and then decided to find or create NHS, which was a bit of a thinking journey. And fortunately, NHS is where I've been for the last 10 years. We've started off with consulting to healthcare organizations and helping them improve the impact on patients and on their staff and also the world. But also, as we went through that journey, finding that actually people need technology, people need data to make better decisions to improve the impact on others. Yeah. And so what we've been doing since that time is going from actually taking other technologies and introducing them to customers to now developing our own technology products to help our customers make a better impact in people's lives.
Wow. And thank you for so eloquently describing what is, yes, quite an incredible journey, all the way from the Malaysia to England and here to Australia, and the different organisations and roles and decision points. I really felt that decision point about, do I take the redundancy and leave, and that flow that you so eloquently put, but I can really
very windy. It looks like flow now.
Very windy. But that flow of making those decisions, it's very different being a doctor to being a business owner to working for a pharmaceutical company. So with that kind of what some might think of as quite a dramatic career shift at different points in time, what then do you think after all of that, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and fundamentally, I would put it down to: do you believe that you're being a good human being and a good, loving human being, on a day-to-day basis? And that's what I've drilled it down to now. How did I come about that? Because I think that's the center. Around it is all the different aspects of well-being, right? And so, if you think about well-being, you think about career, you think about money, you think about family, mental health, physical health, environmental health, spiritual health. These are all the parts of success for me, right? It's not just about having a successful career, because I believe I'm still on that journey, but certainly I've had some high points along that other people would regard as successful. The financial side, achieving financial stability and security is definitely something that's a lot of people aspire to have in abundance. So that's definitely a goal. But I would prioritize even higher than that is family. So that loving relationships with family is priority number one for me, and maintaining that relationship is really important. So I've obviously lived overseas from my family in Malaysia for 20 something years, but preserving that continuity of relationship has been my highest priority. So as often as possible, I try and fly back for key birthdays, and that's what I would regard as successful. The ability to fly back for birthdays is a metric of success for me. And then also maintaining your physical, mental health, and spiritual connection. Those are all very, very important for me as well. So I tend to look at success as this, balancing out all these holistic elements, because I have known many successful entrepreneurs, people that I role model, and people that I've studied and resonated. And often you only see one part of the picture, Michele. You only see their career success or their financial success. But when you look at all the other parts around health, well-being, the family relationship, a lot of them have broken down in those areas, and sometimes irreparably, right? So it's about, for me, success mindset in success is about progressing all of that, as one human being.
And it makes no surprise. So thank you for sharing that. It makes no surprise that with your medical background as well, that you have always had that sense that you're treating the whole person. Yeah. And so success is around the whole person as well, in all of those different areas that you beautifully described. Yeah. So you do have perhaps a unique skill set and a unique lens. So I'm sure the viewers are very, very interested in what you would then suggest and recommend as key things that have helped you create a mindset for success. What would you suggest to the viewers?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of strategies and tactics to create, a successful mindset. But I think at the core of all of this, what gets you through all the challenges is you feeling like, or me feeling like, I'm connected with my deeper purpose as a human being, whether you call it a spiritual sort of calling or intent, or a deeper truth within yourself, to say, am I living my deeper truth, and I'm doing what's ultimately right for me to make the biggest difference that I can in the world in the time that I'm alive. That's what fulfills me. And so having that meaning, Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, and so on, like having that continuous meaning will drive you to overcome whatever challenges you're facing at any point in time. So that purpose, connection with purpose, is a big thing. The thing that I find that people don't fully connect with is understanding what is their own purpose, and often even companies now, they're trying to attract people based on purpose. But if an individual doesn't know their own purpose, how do you do that? So I would recommend people find their purpose and discover it, and do some exercises to work through that. One of the tools that I use is a tool called the Ikigai, Ikigai, which you may have heard of, is that Japanese tool for purpose. And so I did that, way back in 2012, and it really helped me get clear on all the different elements that connect to purpose, which is, what do I love doing? What are my strengths? What's the problem that I want to help solve in the world, which was for me, it was around human health and well-being. And then also, how can you make money from this? How can you earn a sustainable living from this as well, which is important to purpose. So the first one I'd say is purpose. The second one I'd say
before you go on, I'd just like to kind of reflect, otherwise it just can sound like a lot of talking.
Yes, I can do that.
And I know that you are a fabulous and very, very eloquent speaker. So for those that haven't read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, I highly recommend that book, because talking about finding meaning and purpose in some of the darkest times in that gentleman's life is a really inspirational read. And I really want to reinforce and support what you were saying around the sooner you find or look at your own values and purpose and what are you here for. Whether it's pandemics or floods or whatever it might be that's going on in the world around you, spending that time and spending the focus to look inside and go, well, what really gives, I say nowadays, what is it that gives my heart joy? What makes my heart sing? And the things that I do that are on purpose with where I want to be going and what I want to be doing aligned with my purpose make my heart sing. And those things that are more of a drudge and more of a chore, you can definitely tell. And like yourself, you know, many, many years of living with my purpose, and even way back in, I think it was around 2012 as well, I set up my company's name is On Purpose Transformation.
Right.
So I've known for a long time and run courses, and we have an online course as well around purpose to help people find what is the core. You know, it's interesting, having come from some religious backgrounds earlier on in life, how religion can also kind of set that tone around, well, what is your purpose? And so I think that, did you find that much in Malaysia growing up, that there was a link between religion and purpose for you back then?
Yeah, I think you know, for some people, and certainly for us, you know, there is religion. I'm a Hindu by background, and some of that is taught as part of your, let's say, religious training early on in life. But I forgot that, you know, to a large degree. You know, living in the UK and Singapore, I was, you know, kind of away from a lot of that, and so and really just working on passing my exams in medicine, right, and doing all the things that you know, I needed to do at that time to you know, create a career as a doctor, and then obviously later on in the corporate world. But I think that decision point, as you talked about, when, you know, I was in the film industry and technology, and, you know, building companies in that space, whilst we did sort of win awards and all that, I really felt there was something missing. So there's this superficial success, but something missing underneath, and that you know, search for meaning. I guess I didn't even know it was called meaning. For me, it was a feeling of something missing. Meant that, you know, I went into this different journey of creating Energess as a company that would help you know, human health and ease that suffering and so on. Which then, you know, I found meaning in that service to others to ease that. Now, I'm not saying there's no meaning in the entertainment industry or the technology industry, because you can find meaning in that as well. It's just, it's all individual, you know, it's all individual. And as I said, it's that mixture of the different quadrants. What do you love doing? What are you good at? And the combination of those things is what really helps you fulfill your ikigai, I suppose.
Yeah.
Which is also an evolving piece. You know, it changes with time. As you grow and evolve, that changes with time as well. So you've got to evolve with that.
And also with the different life stages, you know, it's very different when you're younger to when you first get married to when you have children.
Yeah.
But I think one of the other interesting things that you kind of maybe touched on there was that you had to work, understandably, very hard to become a doctor. And so you kind of climbed that mountain, if you like.
Yes.
And then you got into the technology because you were interested in that and interested in movies. And so you did that and you kind of climbed that mountain.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing with that is that like many people that were probably a lot older than yourself at that time, who spend decades climbing some of these mountains, only to then recognize, well, even if I can go out and turn my mind to something and be successful, so I know how to create success in my life.
Yeah.
It's that underlying calling, some people call it, or search for the meaning, that even with you know, being a doctor and then being a tech mobile phone movie producer, tech company, these different things didn't line up for you as much as Energess and coming to that core of, you know, whatever you're doing in your business life and in your, which business life takes up most of people's lives and days. Having that aligned with that goal of serving people in their health and wellness. And I think that's the interesting part there, is around that you're already creating success in your life, and you learnt in many ways the skill sets needed to create success. But even creating success didn't give you that ultimate success until you found something that was more aligned to your pathway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also, for a lot of people, when they sort of change career path, they look at it as starting again from scratch or starting from zero. And certainly in those instances where I went from medicine into the corporate world, yes, I may have had a doctor background, but really I started at a very junior role, associate level role in the corporate sector, and so and that was me still, having that willingness. And one of the other traits, I think, is that willingness to be flexible and agile and learn continuously. I think that's a big thing, and not have ego hold you back and saying, I need to keep going up and up and up, because that up and up and up is only in your perception, whereas for me, starting at a much lower role. See, if you're a doctor, you're almost like the boss on the ward to some degree. I wouldn't say that because I work with a lot of nurses and I know they're the bosses, but sometimes you feel like you have a lot of power as a doctor. But when you enter the corporate world in a very junior role, suddenly you're without that sense of power in a workplace environment. And so that sense of, I'm doing something for myself to improve myself and to improve my ability to serve others, that was an important realization. Similarly, when I'd gone from the top of I was 34 years old and I was advising the CEO of the largest company in the industry, as a chief of staff and so on. And that, again, as you mentioned, is climb that mountain. And that's when I realized I needed to start again as an entrepreneur, because I wanted to be the CEO of my own company. But what I found was that when I went into the film industry, no one cared that I was a doctor. No one cared that I worked for Pfizer. Starting in from right at the bottom as a filmmaker and technology disruptor that had no track record, in the industry. And then again, after doing 3 years of that, starting at NHS, again starting a company from scratch with no track record. So you have to go into these things, with very informed decisions, but knowing that you want to be of greater service each time, but also be willing to start from scratch. Not let ego get in the way of you fulfilling your purpose. Not let pride get in the way of saying, hey, I used to achieve all these things. I deserve this customer or this industry or so on to pay me very highly now that I've got 10, 20 years experience. That may not be the case. Someone may only be willing to pay you $500 or $100 or $50 or whatever it might be. But if you're serving them, and that's where you need to start from in this different area, then by all means do it. And that's something that you have to do.
Yeah, and it's great how you recognize as well, whether it was the top as a doctor or the top as the film technology disruptor or the top in Pfizer sort of thing. I think it takes a lot of character to reach those points and then go, well, is this truly what I'm here in my limited time on the planet to be doing? And to go, well, no. But and I loved how you described, because it is a real change to the ego to go from being at the top of the food chain back to starting again and learning. I think that for those watching, we can both say quite sincerely that the entrepreneur space is very much that kind of space where you can start up, and with the right approach and the right attitude and the right mindset, you can actually start from anywhere and become quite successful, because it's all down to how much work you put in. You don't have an organisation or a structure or a this or a that kind of supporting your training, your this, your that. It all comes back to how much effort you put in. And that effort is very much driven by purpose and meaning. What are you doing it for, and what kind of difference do you want to make to the people around you?
Yeah, and I think the team element, and this comes to because whilst people may again, I think the appearance of starting from scratch is often a mistaken perception, because you're never really starting from scratch. You've already built up your own internal IP here with every piece of experience that you've built in. And Steve Jobs said in one of his speeches at Stanford, right, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect the dots looking back. So when you start doing the work moving forward, you can see, I know why I became a doctor. I know why I went to Pfizer. I know why I did the films. Because every customer or client that I've been helping has leveraged that experience to develop their own business, to improve their own impact, to generate their own revenue. And so it all starts to make sense once you actually start serving others in terms of all the work that you've done in the past. And so I think that persistence is one of the things, but also continuing to reframe what failure might look like. Because for some people, this journey might seem like, different failure points. But if you reframe that to saying, yeah, okay, that maybe wasn't the right thing for me at the time, but here's how much we've learned. And here's what I'm taking into the next piece that I'm going to continue. And I think that's why, with NHS, we've been going for 10 years now, because every time we develop or innovate on a new product or so on, we learn from the last one and build and improve. And so you're never really starting from scratch. You're always growing your portfolio of service, if I can.
And it's the same as, when you finish primary school and then go to high school.
Yeah.
You needed that background and that education of primary school to set you up for high school, and then high school for university, and university for life, and so forth. Yeah. The other interesting thing that I'm sure people might be thinking and wondering is that, is there another mountain that you're planning to climb or scale at some point? Do you feel like, because sometimes it can be actually the challenge of learning something new and starting and building from scratch. Do you see that as part of the evolution for NHS and for you? I know that in many cases the founder is the company and the company is the founder. So
yeah, I kind of disagree with the whole notion of the founder is the company. I mean, we've got a very strong team now, and really, whilst I'm the face of the company, really, if at any point I ever look good, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of an amazing team that are in 6 different countries, that are multifunctional with different backgrounds, from software to healthcare to former ministers and former CEOs and people who are in operations and analytics and so on. And all those people are really the people doing the work. I'm really just coordinating that to some degree now. But fundamentally, there's this amazing team that I have in all these different countries that are actually doing a lot of the work to almost make me look good in some ways. So I think it's, I want to recognize that what you do as a founder or an individual is, over time, as you're living your purpose, is that people who are connected with that purpose join you on the journey and help sort of develop and the products and services that we're doing and developing. Is there a long-term goal? Yes, we from day one we set a vision to help 1 billion lives in health and well-being, and that was something that we've evolved to helping 1 billion lives with health and well-being through technology, because we realized we had that strength in data analytics and software. So that's our vision and mission. But at the same time, balancing that with do your best for the people in front of you every day. Whilst you might have that long-term goal, how you deliver that may be different. As I mentioned earlier before we did the interview, Michele, that our background was largely helping organizations in healthcare, so hospitals and medical centers and health insurers and so on. That's where a lot of our work has been for the last 10 years. But now we're helping corporations. And
that all sounds fabulous. And so how can people, if they wanted to find out more, get hold of you? What's the best way of contacting you?
So best way would be to find me on LinkedIn. My name is, to spell it out, is Avnesh, Avnesh, and surname Ratnanesan, Ratnanesan. So just type in Avnesh Ratnanesan on LinkedIn, or find me on the website NHS.com, which is ENERGESSE.com.
Fabulous. And one of my favourite questions in this interview and these discussions is asking the guest, if you were to look back and think back to those many, many hours that you would have had to put in to qualify and become a doctor, or even to decide to study to become a doctor, and I'm sure many sacrifices throughout then and other times in your life. What advice or guidance might you give to your younger self if you were looking back now?
Yeah, I think there's two pieces of advice, and one is a simpler piece of advice is that, everything you need you will receive, and it may not come in the form that you think, but everything you need you will receive. So don't stress. And that's when I reflect on the journey of changing careers. What I really needed came through those changes, but it was never in the form that I intended in my 5-year plan, or so on. The other thing I would say is, you are loved unconditionally. I'll tell my younger self, you are loved unconditionally, because I think, again, coming back to that stress, that pressure, certainly, in my life, it was always this feeling that I needed to achieve something in order to be loved or liked by others. Whereas, I've let go of that need more and more over time. There's still some of that, but just reinforcing that, that we all love unconditionally helps me make better decisions. And I know it does for others as well.
What beautiful, beautiful advice. And I love that sentiment to bring the interview to a close. You are loved unconditionally. So thank you so, so much for being on the show today, Dr. Avi.
Thank you so much, Michele. Really enjoyed being here. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, Michele. It's great to stay connected with you as well.
Yes, it's been fabulous to reconnect, trading the mindset for success. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.